Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Hey, good morning. Good morning, everyone. This is the usual broadcast that we have from AUAA, Annamalai University Alumni Association, USA. I am going to be calling in my dear friend Arun Mori. He's from 89 E&I. And by the way, this is Muthu Ireland. Hey, welcome, Arun.
Thanks, Muthu. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Fantastic, fantastic.
Excellent. So there's a lot of glory coming back to the university, I heard, right? A lot of accreditations and things like that, and universities getting all the energy like the days we used to have or our seniors used to have. And recently we had, meets here, right, with the alumni.
Yeah.
San Francisco Bay Area, you were here from Atlanta, a couple of people from Atlanta. Ravi was here. It was really a nice get together. And the next few events we are planning in LA on May 5th, it's a Friday evening. And then also the next one being worked as a Dallas one.
Yeah.
So
as you know, I always say we have 3 C's of the purpose of the Alumni Association is 3 C's. Yep. That is connect, celebrate, and of course contribute towards our university. So as part of that connect, the connect is the networking, people, friends, getting together, business people, employees working at leveraging each other's for their personal benefit as well as just reminisce our old times. And of course, number 2 is celebrate of the success of our alumni, and of course contribute. So today our purpose is to celebrate, and I'm so excited about today's session. Today we have 2 celebrities. One, Vidya. I'll introduce Vidya, who herself is and most very successful executive leader who has spent most of her career at the crossroads of technology and business. For more than 2 decades, she has delivered innovative technology solutions to enhance business value while managing large global teams. She has held senior roles in top organizations such as Goldman Sachs, Target, and JP Morgan Chase, and leading large-scale technology transformation programs. In addition to being a diversity champion, she's also passionate about sustainability and well-being as social causes. Vidya, obviously, is from 1993 E&I, and also Masters in Engineering from the University of Texas, Austin, and an MBA from New York University. She's currently the co-founder and CEO of SC, which is an AI company providing enterprises with high-caliber AI engine. Now, as I read this, now we need to have another session with Vidya separately. But today, I will hand over to Vidya to introduce Sam, who's the CEO of Deloitte Consulting, and Vidya and Sam, really looking forward to a great session. And of course, before I go, those of you who are in USA, please visit auaa-usa.org and become a member if you are not already. And those who are not in USA, please do become a member in your respective alumni associations and become active. Over to you, Vidya.
Excellent. Let's bring the first CEO, the first executive.
Thank you so much for the kind words. Romba pugarnditinga. But I'm going to now introduce Sam, and a very impressive person, and proud to say that he's an Annamalai University alum. Sam Balaji is the Global Consulting CEO at Deloitte and a senior member of the Deloitte Global Executive Team, leading a $30 billion business. He has lived, operated on 3 continents, and has had significant technology and P&L leadership roles He has advised CXOs and boards across industries and geographies on digital transformation, cyber, AI, cloud, technology, ESG, growth, M&A, innovation, business models, operations, and risk. He's a results-focused executive who has deep technology transformation at scale and change management experiences across sectors. It goes on: tech, media, telecom, energy, healthcare, mobility, and so on. And he has also developed and mentored diverse leaders who've grown to CXO roles. And that's really my favorite. The giving back is so important. He's also an experienced board director, serving 6 years at Deloitte, including board vice chair and the compensation committee chair for 3 years, which is a very critical role, as we all know. I've had the pleasure of getting to know him over the last couple of weeks. And with that amazing introduction, I would like to welcome Sam to the session, and all of you as well for this interesting discussion.
Amazing introduction with the humble beginnings.
Well, thank you for having me.
Good morning, Sam.
I am very pleased to be here with you, and glad to connect with our alumni here in today's call.
Excellent. So, Vidya, take it over.
Yes. So,
and
Sam, why don't we start the conversation with overview of your life and your career journey, starting right from the Annamalai days. I'm sure a lot of people in the audience would want to hear about your college days and how it was. I believe you were in the 1983 batch. So please tell us about the early days.
Yeah, early days, right? So I am from Adyar, Madras in Chennai now. We grew up there. My parents actually bought my home when I was born. We had very modest means, but education was a priority. So I went to St. Patrick's in Madras, and then moved on to Vivekananda College before I came to Annamalai to do my chemical engineering. It's interesting. So Annamalai, we had a blast. It was an amazing time of my life, and it was quite interesting. While the college education was relatively free in India and continues to be so, and this is a really big deal. And if you compare that with the 250,000 or more here in the US for private college education, it's a really big deal, priority on education. And we're all indebted to the country for that. So anyway, bottom line was, we didn't know we could afford hostel boarding. And my father actually had to take out a loan from his Provident Fund in those days. And I'm sure that will resonate with many of you. So anyway, I left home when I was 15 years old, teenager becoming an adult, going from a very sheltered environment at home to a very wide open Annamalai. It was a wild ride, and I learned a lot. And to put this in perspective, it was the late 70s, bell-bottom culture, step cuts, and mustaches for the men. That's kind of what we wear. And it was the early days of Rajinikanth and Kamal and Ilayaraja music, to put that in perspective. Obviously there's multiple generations of you watching, but I just wanted to do that. We spent 5 years there. We were one of the last 5-year batches for engineering, not 4 years. And during our time there, I think India had 3 prime ministers, Morarji Desai, Charan Singh, and Indira Gandhi. And I still remember the day I moved to college. So we got on the Shenkoda passenger from Egmore. My parents came to drop me off, and that's when there was somebody in the compartment that was traveling there, another student. His name is T.S. Murali, one batch ahead of me. And I ended up, starting at 3 a.m. So I distinctly remember, even though it's been many decades ago. So it was a lot of fun, but it was also very daunting, hard at times. But that's when I actually learned a lot of different things about grit, resilience, the value of diversity and teamwork, and then really formed a lot of enduring friendships for life, which continue on even today. And in my batch, we had a lot of people that went on to become very successful entrepreneurs. Some ran small and big businesses. We had some people to go to the government. Obviously some work in multinational corporations across the globe. And a couple of people even went back to farming after their engineering degree, which is interesting. And working there with a lot of people that are different from you is a big highlight of what I had there. And one of the things I remember is while in hostel, we actually had 8 people in my room in the second year. And I actually have a photograph if you can park that up. We had a lot of people in that room, and I distinctly remember the time that we actually had 8 people in college in one room, but we made it work. It was a blast. Like I said, during my time there, the college actually had to close several times. And these are some photos with the help of AI and colorization. You see some things. But yeah, that's the photo with the 8 people in the room. And there's 9 people in the room. The guy right in the middle is actually a real person, not part of the poster, but that's what we had. So anyway, keep moving on here. The college is actually closed several times for strikes. We don't know why, but it's a miracle that we actually had our exams on time and graduated on time. So my favorite seat in college was the last row on the right-hand side on the aisle, if I could get it. One important thing I'll mention is when we were in college, there were no women. And I'm delighted that Vidya is actually talking to me today on this conversation. I think the very first batch of female engineering graduates happened in 1986. So actually, at the last year we were in college was the first year we introduced, women engineers into the curriculum there. So anyway, we went through a golden jubilee. We had lots of weekly trips to the temple, lots of movies with the 4 theaters that were there. And then the station Pulayar Koval received special attention during the exam times and more attention just before the results. And we all know that. I'll finish with one thought, the value of 10 rupees in those days. It's a really big deal now that you look back. With 10 rupees, I was able to go from college back home to Madras, taking the Madurai parcel passenger. We would pay for the train ticket, 2 teas, one in the Chidambaram NVLR and one at Villupuram, and also the bus fare to get home. And all that was for 10 rupees. And 10 rupees those days also paid for a string cot that we used to sleep on, every day and every night. Of course, we had to pay more to restring it from time to time. And then the last but not the least, interesting for a US audience, the value of $1 was less than 10 rupees because we had to buy books that were denominated in US dollars. Anyway, that's a little bit about what we did and had a blast. As I said, we went through a lot and graduated in 1983. You'll remember 1983 was when India won the World Cup at Lord's, right after we graduated. But in addition, that was the first year that the IBM PC XT was introduced, as well as I think the first commercial cell phone became available. Anyway, I'm an old guy, long time ago. Back over to you, Vidya.
No, that's very interesting to reminisce, Sam. I think even in our batch, in terms of number of people in the hostel, we got down to 6, not more than that, right? So, but took 10 years to cut off 2 people, I guess, per room. I don't know if I mentioned, I'm from Villupuram, so a lot of my friends from Chennai usually take that Chengotai passenger train, and my dad never allowed us to take the train because the time it gets to Villupuram was always a very odd time, either like very late in the night or very early in the morning. So I never took the train, but everybody talks about Villupuram Junction and so on. So I just wanted to mention there. And the other thing about college is we all have a lot of memories which kind of stay with us, right? There's a lot of memories, but could you talk a little bit about maybe some funny moment or something very special that happened while you were in Annamalai?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff, and some of them I actually, covered this, really big deal as we went through this. One of the things is, lots of fun times. We obviously used to go to some classes. We used to cut classes and not go to class. And one time, from friends and I decided we're going to go to a movie by cutting some classes in the afternoon, which was a mathematics class, I remember. So anyway, we went away and, but much to our surprise, we actually found our teacher who was supposed to be taking that class was actually in the front row in front of us at that same movie. Anyway, it was quite embarrassing, but that's kind of what happened there. But lots of fun moments. We obviously, went through a lot, bonding, forming, storming, and norming together as teams, and plenty of things there. I remember, we used to, go to the temple a lot every Friday. To the Nataraja temple, sometimes to the Thilayamman temple. We also, had the Puliyodrai from the Perumal temple adjacent to the Nataraja temple, which I don't think is available anymore. I was there last year And anyway, that's a big part of what we did. But some of the things, we used to have some challenges because the water supply was inconsistent when we were there. And we didn't know whether we were able to take a shower on any given day or have running water. But anyway, we endured all that stuff. It was a fun time and, with some memories. During our time there, the university actually had its golden jubilee. And then the president of India, I think it was Sanjeev Reddy, he came over there. We built a helipad for that. I don't know how much money we spent, which is a lot more then. And it was a really big deal to get the president of India to come in and spend some time with us at a momentous occasion. Lots of fun times again. Like I said, I probably have forgotten more than I can remember right now. But some of our friends continue to stay in touch. In fact, of those 8 people, 4 of them ended up as my roommates for the subsequent years we were together. And the other 4 ended up going to Mariappa Nagar in a home, which we adopted as our home away from home. And we used to go over there a lot. So those are some things I could recall.
Yeah, quite interesting. And I also have a list like this and I always tell both my daughters who are in college now, my closest friends are still my college friends, not even my school friends, because I think it's still your formative years and you end up living with them. It's not the same thing, right? If just seeing them in the evening or during class. So they become almost like sisters, right? So some of them may be watching actually. You've come a long way, Sam, and I can somewhat relate to it, although your success is, phenomenal, right? So I do want to ask you, at what point did you know, were there sort of like pivotal events or turning points in your life or career that you want to talk about and that kind of, led you to where you are in a way? I know it's a series of events, but anything that you want to call out?
Yeah, there's a lot of that actually. I've had a life of pivots. That's in a nutshell what happens. The first pivot actually started right after graduation. I graduated in chemical engineering. I obviously wanted to take on a job just given, we needed money for the family, but education was a priority and my father insisted I should get, education. So I pivoted from chemical engineering to computer science, sight unseen, had no idea what I was doing. That's my first pivot. And if I look at my career, probably 3/3 is the way I look at it over the last 3 decades or so. The first, decade was as a software engineer, right? Most of us have a similar background. Went from small startup, small and medium companies, did that for a while. That actually brought me to the US, 37 years ago, something like that. Lived in the US in multiple states, went to the Netherlands, spent a couple of years down there as well. That then brought me to Deloitte. So the first 10 years was really software development. And I actually got bored of software development after a while and said, I need something broader. And that's something, every 3 years or so, I've had a different role, whether I changed jobs, which was before Deloitte. And then while at Deloitte, the big organization that Deloitte is given me the opportunity to do lots of different things every 3 years without having quit on it. So at Deloitte, I've been here again, almost 3 decades now. First decade was really around, doing work in telecom industry, media and entertainment, high tech, based in the Bay Area. We moved here almost 25 years ago. Did a bunch of M&A work, tech and transformation, now digital transformation. I actually moved back to India with the family. My daughters, I have 2 of them, were quite young then, to start up, our operations in India, which are at scale right now with 100,000 people. So that was 20 years ago almost. And then, the next decade, I got into leadership roles, obviously, serving clients a lot, but, even within the firm, multiple management roles, multiple board roles, and across multiple businesses that we have. In the consulting business, which I lead today, as I said, but I also was in the regulatory part of the firm, part of our audit business, started up our cybersecurity business. So I didn't have to quit to find things to do, but every 3 years I've had something new and an itch to do that. And half of the roles I took on were brand new roles that didn't exist before. So I had to go make a new thing happen. And that's kind of what I felt comfortable doing. And I don't know, you can say that I can't keep a job for long. That's another way to look at it. And
or you are multi-talented.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't, you can, whatever way it is. So, I had difficulty in answering the question, what do you want to do in the next 5 years? Because 5 years was way too long.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good thing about large corporations, right? You don't have to quit. There's so much diversity and subcultures that you could just simply move divisions. There's always internal opportunities you can explore, and as you say, make it your own, right? You create a role and you execute it in a way that is unique to you. But I was wondering, as I was talking to you, right, over the last couple of weeks, and I've had this thought about myself as well. There are certain every role you've talked about, right? Even as I was looking at your bio and the experiences you've had, it requires a lot of leadership, right? And I've always wondered, are leaders born or made? Did you always know you're going to be, and I'm not even talking about material success or anything like that, right? That's almost like a side effect. But I think leadership needs a certain, that secret sauce, if you will, right? It's charisma, it's intelligence, it's risk taking, it's being in the forefront, and it's raising your hand. It's so many things. Were you always like this, or is this something you kind of built over time? And the other thing is, adding on to that question, consulting is a business that is so rapidly changing and evolving, and you have to always be current and be aware of what's happening in the industry, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. How do you keep yourself current? How do you keep yourself aware and sharp? And
oh, there's a lot there. Let me unpack that. So first of all, my perspective is I don't think leaders are born. I don't think it's genetic at all. And if you haven't watched the movie Trading Places, one of my favorite movies, you should watch that.
I've seen it
multiple times. So I don't think so. I think leaders are made and they learn from their experiences. That develops over time, honestly. And I actually go back to, pre-anomaly. I was actually a pretty quiet guy in school. And going back to the environment, I grew up in school and college. And actually, my college time at Anomaly changed me. And as I said, developing grit, resilience, a can-do attitude, dealing with adversity, and you learn a lot when you go through stuff together, particularly as a team. Really becoming bold and fearless, and also having a lot of fun, right? You got to think about that. So learning from others has been an important part of what I've always done in my life. I meet a lot of people in my time, both people that work with me, clients, colleagues, even our alliance partners and things like that. And some people think they're the smartest people in the room. They may be, but they don't know as much as some of the other people, just given different perspectives matter, etc. So learning from others has been a big deal. And that is something that all of us as human beings and leaders need to do that more. And then leaders need to listen more and adapt and respond and be open-minded. That's a really big deal and an attribute. Yeah. So how I keep up to speed, I mean, consulting is a business. You got to stay ahead of your clients' thinking and what you have to do. So I do a lot of speed reading, remember a lot of random things, and we've covered a couple of those. I used to read a lot of books when I was younger, but right now, I consume a lot of stuff, obviously online, for the last 20 plus years, and then a lot of Audible as well these days. My daughters give me some recommendations on what they've been listening to or reading, I guess, and that's something. So read a lot, listen a lot, and learn a lot is probably the short answer.
I guess it's continuous learning. That's the bottom line, right? So you never
learning
really
never stops. You're totally
right.
You're
never really done. And as long as, and I certainly can relate, and I understand that perspective. I consume a lot of content, and you never know when it's going to come in handy. It also helps you connect the dots in a way, I suppose. So that's fantastic. Here's an interesting question, I think. If you could have breakfast with anybody, who would you pick? It could be somebody from your past. It could be an Anomaly University professor. It could be a celebrity. It could be even a fictional character. Who would you pick?
Oh, fictional character. That's an interesting question. Let me, I might ramble a little bit, but I'll try and get to answering that, right? So I've met a lot of different people over time, just given I travel a lot. I don't remember what the movie was that George Clooney was traveling, I've been traveling nonstop for 30 years or whatever, right? I've got 5 or 6 million frequent flyer miles. And I've met a lot of celebrities in my travel, right? Vijay Amritraj is one guy. I recall I was sitting next to him on a flight. I actually sat next to Juhi Chawla. I didn't know who she was. She was sitting right next to me. We were chatting. And then when we got off the plane and started walking away together, a friend who came to pick me up at the airport said, do you know who that was? And I had no idea. And then Professor Ram Charan, who's actually a luminary, a good business author, was a professor in Michigan. He's written a lot of books, including one of my favorites, Execution, the discipline of getting things done. It's not about strategy, it's about how you execute that strategy. So anyway, I've met a lot of different people. And then last summer, this is actually quite interesting. I had the privilege of being with His Holiness Pope Francis.
Wow.
And Pope Francis, and obviously I look at him as a world leader, and talk about someone that came from very humble beginnings. He was Argentinian. And he's a lot more than a religious leader. He is as the head of Vatican. He brings people together with and opines on things that matter from world and societal issues. And that's an important one. At least that's one man's point of view. Indira Gandhi obviously was someone that I always admired growing up. Obviously, she had multiple terms as the Prime Minister of India. And again, a very strong and powerful female leader, but very lonely in the parliament, I could see in my younger days, because it was mostly males, MPs and other people. And actually, we just crossed, we are in the Women's History Month. And we just on March 8th, I was on a panel discussion like this, talking about International Women's Day, right? There were actually 3 prime ministers, all female, in the 60s. Really big deal. Simarao Bandaranaike in Sri Lanka, I think, was the first one. Indira Gandhi, and then Golda Meir. And then it took the Western world over 20 years after that before Margaret Thatcher became a prime minister. So those are some people, I've always admired, and it's a big deal. And then I've had the opportunity to meet with President Bach, International Olympics. In fact, I'll be seeing him on Monday. So again, I've met a lot of different people through business and travel and some random acquainting. So
that's so interesting, Sam. If somebody asked me that question, I would say Indira Nooyi, because I relate to her background. And of course, she's another phenomenal success and a role model to a lot of women like myself. And she's continuing to make an impact, right? Even though she's no longer the CEO. And ironically, I did run into her at an airport lounge in Emirates. I think she was going to Dubai and I was flying to India all the way. And I was so awestruck when I saw her. The presence and the magnetism and the aura she had in person, I became tongue-tied. And me becoming tongue-tied doesn't happen very often, as you can tell. And I kicked myself so much after that. But yeah, she's been a role model to me.
Yeah, she's been an amazing role. I actually saw her on the Eurostar. I think I was going from Paris to London and spent a few minutes with her. Again, a random thing as well.
Amazing. Yeah. So talking about, again, women leaders and all that, you had mentioned that 1982 was the first year that women joined our engineering college, which is something I learned after talking to you. And I'm sure a lot of people in the audience are also probably learning that for the first time. And I know that you're also a big supporter of diversity and inclusion. So tell me more, like what you've seen over the decades, right? So you witnessed women sort of coming into the college, and then now you're a global leader running a global organization. What is diversity to you and how has it evolved? Are we where we are supposed to be? I have my views as a female leader, but I would love to hear your thoughts first.
Yeah, we're definitely not where we're supposed to be. Gender diversity is obviously an important dimension, and we're not where we need to be. Look at it. So we hire a lot of people, at college level, we actually hire more females than males in our business. And then, as people go through life events and, other things, because consulting is a hard gig, you got to travel a lot and there's lots of uncertainties. People make choices and, we don't have enough female leaders because they drop out along the way just based on stuff. So that's been actually a big focus of mine about how do you build the pipeline, and, retention is an important part, but development, mentoring, and becoming allies and sponsoring people is a big part of what leaders ought to do. And diversity is one angle. I'll talk about other dimensions of diversity as well. And gender is obviously really important. We're not where we need to be. I do think there's fallout, as people go through the leadership ranks. So we got to do a lot more to get women leadership. I used to live with 3 women. My wife, obviously, we've been married for over 3 decades, and my 2 daughters, who actually, taught me a lot over the years on the importance of what diversity continues to evolve in the marketplace, the things that they deal with day in and day out, and stuff like that. Both of them, my daughters are off the payroll right now, but they can relate to some of this topic day in and day out. And, both of them happen to be in tech or tech related fields as well. And especially in that area, we're not where we need to be, right? So what can we do about it? As leaders, we got to be talking about it, to create awareness create action. And obviously we need to talk about it in forums to create the pipeline, and leaders need to be responsible to develop a visible pipeline to, again, the retention component is the focus, and then the development and the mentoring and the sponsoring goes a long way with that. In the multiple roles I've had, and I'll give you some recent examples, I've transitioned out of 2 CEO roles at Deloitte, actually 3, and in 2 of those, females replaced me as the leader. And that doesn't happen by accident. It takes time and will take effort, but you can't take no for an answer. You got to work harder and make sure that happens. And that's part of one. Now, gender is important. There's other dimensions of diversity, geographical diversity, because a lot of multinationals, including us as a global company, are very US centric. Talent exists everywhere in the world. So I look at geographical diversity a lot in terms of getting the talent from wherever we can get it in a global organization. Doesn't, again, think about as often. And then generational diversity. So gender, geography, generation is kind of the way I think about it. And then you got to think about what are the other things in the last few years, particularly there's been a huge spotlight on diversity, equity, and inclusion in all possible ways. That is a really big deal. We must always keep top of mind. And one of the things, we're focused on is, hiring, disadvantaged communities, people from disadvantaged communities, disabled people, a number of different dimensions, because there's talent in every way, and we got to make sure we continue to promote that. But it takes effort, and this is a important responsibility for all leaders to continue to set the tone and put their money where their mouth is.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. It's a topic that's very special to me, and I think we should have a follow-up separately about this. I almost feel like every country is different as well. In some ways, I think India is more accepting of women leaders than even US is. That's been my experience and perspective. But I think it's time for a quick break. We have a special message from our current VC of Annamalai University. So we'll take a quick break and then we'll come back with a few more questions. Over to you, Muthu.
Thanks, Vidya. I hate to do this. It's such an interesting conversation. But once again, our Vice Chancellor, Mr. Aram Kadiresan, Professor Dr. Aram Kadiresan is actually watching as well. And he was so excited and he has sent us a video message. Unfortunately, due to technical difficulties, we are not able to play it. But I want to read out a quick summary of the message. He, today, believe it or not, today, there are 20,000 students are enrolled on campus, and about 100,000 in distance education, and another 100,000 in affiliated colleges. And it's very unique because we are serving one of the backward or a disadvantaged area of Tamil Nadu. He also mentioned that we have attained several high-level accreditation, but for the first time we got A+ in the by the National Accreditation Committee of the UGC. He also shared that the measure of success of an educational institution is reflected in the success of the alumni, and we right here today we are listening to it and watching to it. And he also called out that the support of the alumni, both in USA, India, and Singapore, and other part of the world on an ongoing basis. He called out the way we are providing some of the scholarship to the current students. He also called out the chemical engineering alumni have actually adopted a whole batch and mentoring. And the US alumni are also involved in a lot of the institutional development activities. We recently donated a water heater for the women's hostel and communication systems, and so on. So more actually they are being done. And he called out, as the university is marching towards the centenary year, more and more alumni support and involvement. Support and involvement is essential, and he's continuing to watch and enjoying this session. And once again, let me call out, please do enroll into the alumni associations in your respective areas, especially in US, AUAA-USA.org. back to you, Vidya.
Awesome.
Thank you for that
message.
wonderful thing. Yeah, we're all very lucky to have learned at Annamalai University. And one thing I tell my children is, it's not just the rigorous curriculum, it's also the people around you, right? It's very competitive. And as Sam mentioned, having fun is really part of that too. And I can, recall countless stories. As I said, I'm sure my friends are watching and chuckling over this. We still talk about and reminisce about a lot of that. What I realized is that's what made the whole thing special, right? So college is college, there's probably a curriculum that's shared across many universities, but what made Annamalai special was the people. And some of the challenges we face actually developed our survival skills, and that we could go anywhere in the globe and be very, very successful. That's kind of how I look at it. So it's very special. We're all very grateful for that as well. So
And
going back
Sam
to
brought it up.
Sam.
Sam brought it up right on the first conversation itself, what the university gave him. Awesome. I'll let you guys continue.
Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about the industry itself, right? Sam has got a very interesting role that he's running the global consulting, which pretty much encompasses everything that we see around us, right? And especially for a company like Deloitte. Sam, could you talk a little bit about what are some of the happening sectors? Because a lot of people that are listening are engineers and practicing, their trade and IT or several other businesses. We hear a lot about AI, which again is a topic very close to my heart. We also hear about sustainability, but what else? What else is happening in the consulting space? Where do you see growth happening?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. So let me reflect on maybe the two things you mentioned, and I'll go to other areas as well. So sustainability is a really big topic. Obviously, it's been a big topic for many years, and finally, we're seeing some movement globally because we got to save the planet. However, ESG is a complicated topic. It's environment, it's societal, and governance. It gets convoluted in terms of what is it, et cetera. I'll focus on climate and sustainability, right? Really around the environment, which is a really big deal. It is different in different markets. So, for example, Europe, where they're going through a whole bunch of hurt at this point, just given what is happening there around energy security and energy transition, right? And Europe is at the forefront of that because they've been at the middle of this a long time. And honestly, the US opting out of the Paris Agreement and then going back in is a different story anyway. So Europe is handling this based on regulation and policy, right? It's a really big deal. I actually think Germany is going to be the epicenter of all that because it's the biggest economy in Europe. And honestly, they have a lot of money to throw at it as well. And there's big industries that need to get transformed. America, on the other hand, has taken a different approach. Obviously, we opted out of Paris, took a step back, and then with the IRA last week, the Inflation Reduction Act has nothing to do with inflation. It's just a catchy name for the politician, I guess. But it's really the first time a material investment in sustainability and climate has been made by the United States. That's a really big deal. And honestly, throwing money, it's not a lot of money. It's $450 billion or whatever. But what has happened is that has become a big sucking sound from Europe, where European companies are taking advantage of the money that our government is providing here in the United States to build out new things that will progress us on the journey to a sustainable planet, right? That's a really big deal. So I actually think that'll continue on for the next 10 years, maybe even 15 years, because we're not going to be done. Big focus on renewables, wind and solar in particular. I don't know whether they've been watching this. The United States has done recent wind auctions, always had it in the Carolinas and the East Coast, but on the West Coast more recently. And then how do you build wind turbines and harness other solar things? It's not going to be easy, right? Because people talk about hydrogen. Hydrogen is complicated. I wish I remained a chemical engineer is kind of what I would think about it these days, because there's green hydrogen, blue hydrogen, and the gray hydrogen, which is really, carbon polluting at this point. We got to work through these things. The sector dimensions are particularly around the hard to abate sectors, transportation, manufacturing is going to be important, but we got to work through this again with alternative sources and energies and renewables. So a combination of policy and incentive is going to power the way forward on ESG. It's a really big topic. What it's going to mean for businesses is it is going to fundamentally transform businesses today. It's going to change business model. The people are going to do different things going forward, looking at circular economies. and you got to do it end to end across the supply chain. And that's not easy, right? So again, that's going to be a huge pivot, and that's going to happen. AI, well, enterprise AI is here to stay. Actually, I remember, and I was actually having this conversation with my daughter, who's also a computer scientist. When I studied computer science, this is a long time ago, we studied AI. Probably too early for its time, didn't happen, somewhat academic. But over the last decade, it has been coming of scale and stature, and enterprise AI is here to stay. I mean, you're a CEO, you know what the market need is. And I actually think, again, going back to geographies, US obviously is doing a lot. China is doing a lot more, honestly, just given, how they're working with government policies and, their views on privacy and security. They're at a different point in their evolution than the United States and the Western world is. So generative AI wasn't even a thing before November, but it is the hot topic that everyone's talking about, right?
Yeah, it's all ChatGPT now.
Yeah, and there's three things. I mean, ChatGPT is one, but generative is broader, as you know. Three big players, right? Obviously, OpenAI gets a lot of press. Microsoft took a $10 billion investment. Google, they've always been in AI and differentiating with that. Bard, the name, obviously had some bumps, coming to grips. And then NVIDIA. NVIDIA is an interesting company, semiconductor company. Obviously they started in the GPU world, and they do a lot of stuff around, simulation modeling and things like that. I think there's more to come on that in that area. And then if you look at cloud has been a thing, Amazon pioneered it, given they needed to, again, build an efficient infrastructure for their seasonal retail business. And what they did was, lease capacity, which then became the cloud. And then cloud is obviously moving to the edge with all these intelligent sensors and devices. 5G deployment is still early. So we are in the world of hybrid, multi-cloud, and it's quite confusing and complicated from a systems management perspective. So super clouds has emerged. We got to simplify that as we look at it. It's here today. That's another 5 to 10 year journey. It's not going anywhere because the workloads are still in a hybrid environment, because many enterprise grade workloads are still on-prem, but a lot of the stuff is moving to the cloud, as you know. And then, we're going to see a move to quantum. That's the other thing. Hybrid quantum is actually here today, and lots of activity in Europe and parts of America. And that's actually going to redefine computing. It's just not quantum computing. It is about quantum network, quantum sensing, so new things. And honestly, it will break cybersecurity as we know it, so which is a risk for everything that we're doing. And there's been a spate of cyber hacks, and more recently, just given what's going on with the geopolitical scenario. So lots of different things. And then your question on sectors. COVID was the lifesaver because governments and technology, enabling things like we're doing today with video really came to the rescue. So those were the two strong sectors during COVID. What's hot today, as I see in the market, is different by different geographies, but energy and resources and infrastructure, that's a big deal today. Financial services is coming up, notwithstanding what happened in Silicon Valley Bank and Credit Suisse, from that world. I think we'll go through that. And consumer, those are having a comeback. But these ebb and flow over time. And the reality is, any couple of years, these things change. And then the world of business ecosystems is another big change, right? Where all these companies over the passage of time have gone from vertical integration, where they control end-to-end supply chain, manufacturing, everything, to business ecosystem, to the high degree of dependency, which is honestly what's causing some of the challenges through COVID. And now supply chains, shifting from efficiency to resilience, because you need them when you need them, regardless of cost. And then as I look beyond the horizon, the immersive internet, metaverse, obviously we've been talking about, trusted AI, AI and trust, just it depends on samples and data. And honestly, there's a lot of facts, as you know. And then you got to deal with the multi-cloud chaos, which will continue for the next decade. So those are some of the things I'm seeing.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting, Sam, and a lot for me to comprehend and process. Banking sector, for some reason, seems to get itself into trouble every 15 years or so, expecting us to bail them out. So that's the cycle we're seeing after the 2009 debacle. And when it comes to AI, I think the data is going to be getting a lot of attention again, especially with tools like generative AI capabilities that you're talking about. And China, for some reason, seems to have done a better job with data compared to us in terms of controlling, because what you put in is what you're going to get out of generative AI systems. So a lot of interesting things happening, and I'm excited to be, in a small way, part of the journey, right? So the other thing, as a follow-on to this, when we think about, what led to a lot of like the step function type transformations, right, over the last couple of decades. One is the global connectivity, right? All the fiber optic cables we put for something else, created the global connectivity that we all see, which led to social media and smart devices, right? So they've caused a big revolution. And COVID, in mostly bad for people who were directly impacted, but also, as you said, a couple of good things have come out of it. We've all taken a step back and reevaluated how we work, how we live, etc. Right, where we live, for example. What do you think is that next big thing that you think is going to maybe pivot the world in a different direction that is as significant? I mean, you did mention a couple of them as we were talking about the industry sector, but is it AI? Is it something else? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the short answer is all of the above, but it's interesting. So we talked about the connectivity that we have, and which is ubiquitous right now and getting faster with low latency. 1983, the year I graduated, is when the ARPANET, not yet the internet, converted to the IP protocol, right? And how far we've come so quickly, right? So technology changes every few years, it evolves. We've gone from, in fact, when I went to college, this is one of the reasons, quite interesting. My first experiences with computing was with punch cards. And that's a thing, people don't even know what that is. Punch card was a way to get input into the system. And, honestly, that's come a long way. We've gone through, waves of transformation. Every few years, technology changes and businesses adapt to that. And, it actually creates new business models and actually lowers the barriers to entry, as we've seen with the digital native companies and the cloud native companies and all these things that were going on, right? However, here are the things, right? We got to start to address some of these inequities in society. We talked about gender. Healthcare is a big deal. The health equity issue is a really big one. And that is different. What health equity means on access to healthcare in Africa is very different from the United States. And even in the United States, the big cities versus the smaller cities or the flyover states, it's quite different. You got to, kind of even that a little bit. Water is going to be the scarcest resource. That's going to be hard to do that. So anyway, bottom line is technology will continue to change. At the end of the day, it's really around the user interface, just continue to evolve. Like I said, punch cards to mainframes, to client servers, to web, to the mobile devices, to ambient devices. Ambient computing is going to be a big deal with immersive wearables, sensors, all that stuff, right? So that's on the user interface. Then you got to have the storage and the data, as you talked about, privacy and regulation. Honestly, the reason China is ahead on AI is they have a different view on privacy, security, and regulation, right? And they can go top down with the $1.5 billion people. And by the way, 1983, I looked this up. China was 1 billion people in 1983, just achieved that milestone the year I graduated. So custom silicon is another big deal. I see that more cross-industry applications of semiconductors. Heard a lot about it over the last couple of years. Obviously, we see it in tech. We see interesting applications in a number of different things. Personalized medicine is kind of here, but not at scale. Certainly not affordable given health equity or inequity. So drug discovery is going to get faster with AI. Industrial materials, material science is actually going to take a step forward with, again, AI and advanced AI. And space might be shocking. It's not about aerospace and defense and all the Star Wars stuff that some of us grew up with. It is space as a commercial enterprise, and that's going to be a big deal in the next decade. But having said all that, I do think the world continues to change and evolve. Geopolitical scenario planning is going to be a lot of focus over the next few years. China is obviously something everybody talks about. We don't know what's going to happen with the war in Europe. There could be another event or two, and we don't know whether Europe, as it exists today in the EU, will stay together, morph or come apart. Those are all things that could shape world events and impede some of the progress that we're making. But we got to continue to stay focused on new things. I think there's plenty of opportunity, particularly for young people and particularly for the entrepreneurs. There's a ton of new opportunity, right? We got to focus, prioritize, and execute.
No, that's actually true. As an entrepreneur or a startup founder, when you look at all the problems, right? I tell my children this too. You look at them as opportunities. How can you go fix? Na enna panna mudiyum, right? For that particular thing. So that's really the perspective actually changes. But that was wonderful, Sam. Thank you again for that very informative response. In the last ரெண்டு கேள்வி நான் இப்ப தமிழ்ல கேட்கலான்னு இருக்கேன். இப்போ நீங்க உங்களால இப்போ திரும்பி உங்களோட அண்ணாமலை யூனிவர்சிட்டி டேஸ்க்கு போக முடியும்னா what would you do? நீங்க என்ன வேற டிஃபரெண்டா பண்ணுவீங்க? என்ன வித்தியாசமா பண்ணுவீங்க? Is there anything you would change or do differently?
Yeah. I'll probably do a better job of answering it in English, and I'll mix and match Tamil as well along the way. So I actually think, opportunities to have more fun. I personally would spend a lot more time in the history and culture. There's so much of stuff in and around Chidambaram and the neighboring areas that I'm actually awestruck now that I read about it a lot more. I'm a history buff. There's a lot more there than we actually could comprehend. And, we didn't spend enough time on it, even though we went to different places and things like that. That's there. And then going back to what we talked about, learning from others, everyone has so much to give. And that's something I would think about. And one thing I did not do, this might be an interesting fact, but I don't know how I missed this. I've never been to Pichavaram.
You really missed out.
I know, it's always a cycle right away.
The boat ride alam pogama, AU education is not complete.
I know, I gotta get there sometime because we always heard about these things, but I gotta make a trip there sometime.
Yeah, so ironically, எனக்கும் அந்த குறை இருந்துனே இருந்தது ரொம்ப வருஷமா. அதுவும் யூஎஸ்ல ரொம்ப நாள் இருக்கிறதுனால நம்ம கோயிலுக்கு போறது, நம்மளோட கல்ச்சர்ல இமர்ஸ் ஆகுது. I do it as much as possible. இங்கே நம்ம கம்யூனிட்டி இருக்கு, கோயில் எல்லாம் இருக்கு. பட் இப்போ என்ன, இந்த போன வருஷம் அக்டோபர்ல எனக்கு அந்த பாகியம் கிடைச்சது. I visited about 25 temples in Tamil Nadu. I did a 6 to 7 day trip and I just stopped at and including Chidambaram, Vaidishwaran கோயில் எல்லாம் போனேன். ஸோ நீங்க சொல்ற மாதிரி ஒரு பிரேக் எடுத்து நம்ம when we go back, right, it's I was awestruck. அது மதுரை டெம்பிள் அதெல்லாம் வார்த்தையில வர்ணிக்க முடியாத ஒரு இது. So that's actually a really good highlight. So advice for upcoming leaders, that is my last question. நீங்க என்ன சொல்ல விரும்புறீங்க young generation, even entrepreneurs like me who are trying to make it and be successful, and please talk to us about that.
No, I think obviously I think all individuals, especially leaders, have to focus on themselves and their personal wellness, right? Health is probably the most important thing. I can say that now. I'm an older guy. Personal wellness, family and friends, and work. That should be kind of the priorities as you look at it as an individual. Because if you get that in the right order, you're actually motivated to do a lot more at work. You got to feel well, be well. And this is physical health and mental health as well. Really big deal. The stigma around mental health, as you know, but that's learning for the times. And family and friends. Take personal risks. I've done a lot of that over time. I didn't know what would happen. I've failed in a few of those, and you got to fail fast, learn from those experiences, because you learn from things that did not go well more than you do when the things that do go well. Never look back. Whatever you do, stay 110% committed on the way forward, because you can always only second guess yourself. I see a lot of people looking back and say, should I have done that? And you don't know what would have happened had you made a different decision. Always focus on the way forward and keep going. And we covered a couple of things, right? Learn from others, have fun, be a sponsor for diversity in every different way, an active, visible sponsor around many things you do. Be persistent in overcoming obstacle and impatient in trying over and over again. It's not the definition of insanity, as people call it. If you believe in something, you got to hold your own and don't take no for an answer.
Thank you, Sam. In the audience, a few questions. There's about 3 questions, but I think I'm going to go in the reverse order because I don't know if we have time. A few minutes.
I can stay on if others want to keep going.
Yeah, I can stay on for a few minutes.
We can do that.
Yeah, I'm going to pick a couple of questions here. Being a consulting CEO at Deloitte, what do you see as the biggest problem for companies you're dealing with?
Yeah, again, it depends on the sector, right? Today, energy companies, a lot of the money is being made. You look at the billions of dollars of profit that oil and gas companies are reporting, for example, right? Now, they are in a transition. Everyone's committed to it. All the CEOs and the shareholders obviously are, the boards are requiring it. But the cash cow is the current fossil fuel business, right? They need to use that money to do that. It's going to take time. There's no instant gratification, but this is something that people are focused on. So that's really a big thing. If you look at financial services, obviously there's always change. Digital banking has been a thing for a couple of decades. And honestly, digital transformation and digital banking was what caused the run on the bank last week, as you can imagine, because otherwise you need to go to the bank, stand in front of a teller and get the money. Central bank digital currencies, that's a thing. Who knows where we go? China again is at the forefront of that. I actually have a CBDC card in yuan that I got from my last trip in China, which was before COVID, of course. Those are interesting things. So you got the industry trends are quite different, but energy is not just, ESG and the sustainability and climate is just not energy. It's about investment. If you are following BlackRock and Larry Fink and the things that he's publishing, you got to read that, right? All businesses, how you invest in companies are changed, circular economies in consumer goods, and then how technology is enabling. I don't think the answer is, just, shutting off whatever we're doing today. It is how do you use a combination of technology as well as, making sure you're making the right investments in the future, and that's going to change the business of tomorrow. As I said, business models will change, and, the world will actually continue to shift, and as it has shifted over the last 300 or 400 years.
Very interesting. Another question, as a leader, for becoming a leader or being a leader, what is your perspective on being at the right place at the right time?
Luck, I think, is what it is. I don't think right. Yeah, luck has a lot to do with it, right? It's about opportunity, and this is about what I said as well. Some of it has to do with luck. Others is going back to, again, your focus on execution and persistence and the ability to get things done. People recognize that, and results matter more than actions, and you got to focus on that. But being at the right place in the right time doesn't happen to all of us, even those would like to want it. And maybe pray more and do what you have to do to be in the right place at the right time. That's all I would say.
Yeah, timing is everything, right? That's even if the opportunity is there, you need to be ready. When you're ready, the opportunity is not open. So
and you got to jump on it. Right? You got to jump on it. Take risks.
So what else? Anything you want to talk about AI impact on agriculture sector? Is there anything revolutionary happening in that
Absolutely,
sector?
Right. Agriculture is a really important one. We got to feed the people on the planet, and actually with drones and AI, we're actually in a new world. And then how do you, again, in a targeted way, as opposed to doing how you irrigate fields? Water is a scarce resource. How do you, again, use pesticides, and crop protection is a big deal. There's multiple elements of agriculture that are being influenced and will be positively impacted by AI. But again, there needs to be enough focus on that as a segment of the market and help the farmers, feed the planet. And that's an important one to do. Drones are already there. Many farmers across the globe, even in India and the US and other countries, are using that at scale. But then how do you embed AI in the drones and then use it in a targeted way? And also looking at, weather reports, right? We're also going through climate change at the same time. We've had a deluge in California with the atmospheric rivers, and the strawberry crops in Watsonville have gone at this point, right? So we got to think about how you can use those machine learning things and predictive algorithms in order to use what you need to do to plant the crops and protect the crops.
Okay, in the Kelvi, I think is a perfect way to wrap this up. I'm going to pick this question. In the Annamalai Alumni Association membership, grow பண்றதுக்கு என்ன ideas? What can you suggest? And reach we still have some opportunity, I think, and I'd given that feedback also. And I feel like a lot of people are missing out in the mari nalla conversations to meet leaders like you, to get exposure to what is possible. So what are your thoughts? Eppadi நம்ம இந்த membership?
Yeah, I think, raise awareness, number one, call for action, which Muthu and Arun mentioned a few things, right? But we got to word, each of us has a responsibility. It's not, somebody who's the chairman of the association. It's a collective responsibility. We're part of the team, and we got to get the word out and, get more people engaged. Engagement doesn't come easily. It comes with, make it interesting, make it valuable, because this is an investment of people's time. And if people, find it valuable, you'll see more. And then, as you said, 3 C's, you got to collaborate, you got to connect, and then celebrate successes and help each other, right? we got to actually help each other out as a community. Multiple ways, no silver bullet. It just takes persistence and more work from all of us as a community. And we got to hold ourselves collectively accountable to do that.
Yeah. That's actually really on point, Sam. It's a very large, global, distributed alumni group, and we all have to do our part. And I think more such events can be organized, Nariya exposure, traction, and more engagement from the audience. We can think of ideas to get everybody involved as well in certain forums. With that, I think we'll wrap the session today. And I want to take a moment and thank you, Sam, for being here and working with me as well and providing this very interesting discussion to the audience. And Muthu, Arun, for giving me the opportunity to talk to Sam in front of this audience. And of course, the people who joined on the live streaming and made it more interesting. So I want to thank everybody. Over to you, Muthu. And
Thank you, Vidya. And Sam, it was an amazing conversation, a lot of appreciations in the messages I see and even on private messages here. And, you being here, Vidya, it made a little, difference in a perspective of interviewer itself. And you have your sisters also watching, the classmates. And Sam, your classmates, your roommates, a couple of them are watching, I believe. And not just that, our Vice Chancellor was watching as well. And, it brought a lot of reminiscence when Sam talked about the earlier days. Our Professor Madhavan from San Diego, he said he took him to 1949, where he joined then.
Yes,
and then
he's a 90-year-old young man.
Exactly. All enthusiastic about, giving back and, so much energy he has. And a lot of common things that whatever we have done in the university, he has done it. And, especially when you mentioned two things, for me, it personally connected, Sam. One, you talked about the home away from home. Unfortunately, both homes were same for me and Arun. We were from Mariyapanagar. So we pretty much grew up there. The other one that touched is the helipad. The first helipad that was built in the Agri department. We were in high school. First time when the flight came in for testing, we bunked the class and then just ran to see the helicopter because that is the only opportunity to see a helicopter that close. Of course, it had some effects when we came back to the class, but that reminded me that helipad was there, and even now it is there, being utilized there. And
Very
also, it brought back a lot of vision of where it is going to be, right? So excellent answers.
Also,
and
one thing I wanted to add is that there are 5,000 alumni in US as per LinkedIn. And we are trying to do an outreach. So wanted to conclude with we had this in-person networking sessions. We started off in DC area, then Atlanta. We had 20 plus, and then we had one in Bay Area that was like 50 plus. Very well attended event. We are organizing one more in Dallas. Then we have in LA, one more being scheduled in Seattle, and we have some follow-ups on each one of these areas. So that's one of the main. I think it's the most important thing is connecting and networking, and everything else will come follow that. It's a great conversation, very elevated, very informative, amazing conversation. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Vidya, for great questions.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been my absolute pleasure. And Vidya, special thanks to you for the dialogue here, and Muthu and Arun and whatever number of people are watching. So thank you. And please get the word out about connecting and communicating with each other.
Thank you.
Excellent.
thank you,
Thank you
everybody.
so much.
Bye.